Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's Friday. It's midday. It means one thing only. It's time to change your batteries.
Oh, okay. What's happened?
Well, it's that time of the year, isn't it? I wonder, you used to work in stationery.
I did, as
Yeah.
did you, but yes, go on.
Yes. This time of year, did you or did you not see a rise in the amount of orders that businesses made for batteries and sellotape?
Sellotape. Yeah, absolutely. I think it was probably the busiest sales month of the year for those two said products, with people just sneaking a few extra ones on their order and just sort of pilfering them off before it was all sort of checked into the stationery cupboard.
Let's face it. There was no way that suddenly businesses used more batteries and more sellotape at that time of year.
No.
Not to the extent which it suddenly rose.
Yeah.
You were naughty out there, weren't you? You were ordering it and taking it home. You know who you are. You naughty people. We have come with and thank you to Stephen for reminding me, but we have come with our Christmas jumpers on today. There we are. Look at that. I have some geese with some Christmas trees and whatever. And better sprout than never.
Better sprout than in, isn't it? Hang on.
Well, better sprout than ever.
Better sprout than yeah, there we go. Christmas T-shirt as opposed to Christmas jumper, because isn't it next Thursday? It's the big Christmas jumper day, and I can't remember the charity, Graham.
The 12th. It's not. Yes, it's the children's charity.
Yes,
not
it is.
Not Children in Need. No, Children in Need. Save the Children.
I can't remember who it is. Yes.
Save the Children next week, folks. We've got to wear your Christmas jumper and give to children across the world to help them. Save the Children. There we go. That's brilliant. We have a special guest today who's got a tree which we thought was a festive Christmas tree, but it's not. They will explain all when they come in a minute. This is the wonderful Vicky, folks. Say hello.
Hello. Nice to be here.
Welcome.
Yes, the Birthmas tree. So it is a dual purpose tree, I'm going to say. It's my daughter's 16th birthday, and quite awkwardly, I went and had a baby during December, which is very inconvenient. So the tree is currently birthday decorated, and that'll all get removed tonight, and Christmas decorations will go up. So I highly recommend out there to anybody who does have a December birthday, get your money's worth, have a dual purpose tree.
Well, I know all about this, right?
Okay. I've never heard of it.
Well, I know, but I categorically know all about this because we have two children. One has a birthday just this side of Christmas and one just the other side of Christmas. So Christmas is a mare in terms of shopping and stuff like that. So one's born on the 23rd.
Oof.
Yeah. And then we've got one on the 29th.
You did not time that well.
We literally have birthday, Christmas, birthday, New Year. It's just non-stop, absolutely non-stop. And you've got to feel sorry for them because, Christmas comes along and when they're young, people are quite nice about it and they still do separates. But then as they get a little bit older, you know who you are.
Merge. Are you talking merge presents here?
People
Graham?
Start doing merges. Yeah, that's not fair, is it?
No,
that's not fair. So there you go. So, happy birthday to your daughter. You said it was.
It is. Yeah, my daughter's 16 today, so I feel very, very old that my youngest is 16.
Oh, you wait till they've been away to university and got a degree.
I don't even.
And then they're lecturing people. Well, it happens. I'll tell you.
I'll come back and update in a few years' time.
Yeah.
Of whether I've survived that trauma or not.
Well, yeah, your hair might not be red by then.
I'll let you into secret. It's not really now.
Isn't it not? No. There you go. Mine's not real at all. It's just stuck there. It's the gel. It keeps it in place. If I bend my head down, though, you'll see the big bald spot on the top. Vicky, tell us a little bit about you and what it is that you do, and then we're going to talk about your fantastic app solution today as well.
So I'm a 40-plus-year-old, fairly low-level rage-ridden woman who is on a mission to educate people about social care, change the face of care, but most importantly, prepare people for what's going to happen in the second half of their lives, which is not a small mission, but I believe we've got to start somewhere. So for background, I've worked in social care for more years than I'm willing to admit online. And what we see is people coming into services. Services are stretched. We all know this. We've all seen the news lately, underfunding, resource issues and challenges. But I think a lot of this could be avoided if we were all prepared as adults. We go to school, we go to university, like Graham's just mentioned, and we learn lots of things. Some of them I'm not convinced are that useful. I still don't know whether I've ever used algebra. I'm sure people will disagree with me. We learn all that kind of stuff, don't we? We learn, je m'appelle Vicky. We learn those things that I've never had to use in real life. But what we don't learn is what's going to happen when we're adults. So I'd like everyone to have a crash course in adulting. We are inevitably going to end up as carers for people, or we're going to need care ourselves. We are, for women, we're going to be menopausal, but also for the men in their lives, need supporting. So it's around that. These things are going to happen to you. And what can we do to prepare? So I work my day job in social care, but also I have created the OurLives app, which is my passion project.
Tell us more.
So there are some wonderful organisations out there that support unpaid carers or support families who are providing care. But for me, having worked in carer services for years and years and years, what we're unable to do, and we seem to be firefighting all the time. And what I wanted to do with OurLives is find something really proactive that actually anticipates your needs rather than is reactive to your needs, which I think is really important. We haven't launched the app publicly yet. We're still in the development phase, and we will continue to develop that alongside unpaid carers. And what this will do is it will allow care to be spread across families, but it will also anticipate people's needs and provide proactive advice about your next steps and what to look forward to and what to do to prepare, so that when the inevitable does happen, when people fall sick, and when people pass it, you've got that preparation in place. So it's all very, very exciting and very hard work.
Wow.
There's a question. We've had 3 or 4 people on who've come from the care sector or from the NHS. There's always a question I like to ask. Them. This is someone who's got no experience in their sector. So I only ever read the headlines and you see the stories. But is it? And I'm not it's not a loaded question. Is it down to money? Is it down to if we threw billions more at it, would it resolve it, Vicky? Or is it actually what's done with the money and how it's allocated? Because I think it's always an interesting one that people who don't work in that sector will, when they hear this thing for money, will always sort of roll their eyes. More money, more money. Is it a case of more money, or is it a case of better allocation of what resource is already there?
I love this question, and I also have a very distinct set of perhaps controversial opinions on this. It's what we do with the money and how we use it. Social care is a sector that is full of a lot of well-meaning people, but it historically has been under-resourced. But then when we do have the resources, they're spread very thinly, and with no tracking on sort of the impact. And what we really need is systemic change. And with systemic change, all of this could be very different. You could throw squillions and squillions of pounds at something, but if you're not throwing it in the right area, at the right resources, then that's just money squandered in real terms. And we hear this a lot with the NHS, with social care, is they'll always need funding, but actually you're very, very bang on the money there. It's about what we do with that. What we tend to find in this sector is we develop lots of small unsustainable projects, and they gather like barnacles on a boat. And actually, if we build that on really shaky foundations, and I've got some LinkedIn posts coming up in the following weeks, is if we build those on shaky foundations, they're inevitably never going to work how we want or need them to. The other part of it is we are all unprepared. and actually really invest in it. And it's not even money, it's awareness, it's time, it's those difficult conversations. And I'm going to be really honest, I don't mind making people feel uncomfortable. We talk about death, people becoming ill, all these things that statistically are definitely going to happen to each and every one of us. But we, and I don't know if it's a particularly British thing, is we feel very uncomfortable talking about them. So then inevitably people get into that situation and they genuinely believe that services will come along like a knight in shining armor and save them. And that really isn't the case.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, not on this podcast, but on another podcast that I do, we had a conversation with someone that works in the field of talking to people about end of life and death the other day, and it's interesting. It's a bit like some of the conversations we've had with experts in other fields, even experts in the areas of things like sleep and whatever recently, Stephen. There's so many areas that in our, certainly in business as well, where we're now talking about well-being and we're covering this, that, and the other, but we're not dealing with it completely holistically yet. And one of the areas we certainly are not talking about is death. And we don't even start talking about, we never talk about that at work, do we? We never.
No.
It's like, let's talk about how, how we keep people fit and active and healthy and coming to work and whatever. But every single day, especially if you're in a large organization, you are probably dealing with either somebody in your business is dealing with some kind of terminal illness. It might not be themselves, but they will have a relative that is going through it. They might be dealing with old age and death and whatever, or somebody's having to deal with the fact that they now have to care for somebody, or they have to deal with the fact that their parents are getting older and they need more help or whatever, and we just don't talk about that stuff.
We definitely don't. And even if we just take this down to pure maths, is statistically 100% of us will die, 100% of us will deal with somebody we care about dying, and that's the reality. We've actually started the OurLives podcast as well, which we'll start to release in January. Yay! And actually we do cover death. But what we didn't want it to be is, it's quite a challenging subject to broach. I've worked for charities that deal with end of life care, and it's not always easy. But we've got one episode where we've got the Yorkshire funeral director, Jacob. He comes on to talk about sort of demystifying some of the things that happen, because quite often when somebody dies, that's the first time we really think about what we're supposed to do next and how it all works at the worst possible moment. And also another fellow podcast host, Daisy, also a very, very good friend of mine, we talk about death and tattoos as a combined subject.
Wow.
Interestingly.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of a departure, because actually we want to destigmatize it and talk about the more light-hearted side of death. And I think culturally in the UK we're not great at that. And I think we can look to other cultures where they do openly talk about death and dying, and they're better prepared, and people have a better experience of death.
Yeah.
You said there, Vicky, about is it a British thing? Are there any you mentioned, and you've gone there slightly to say about other cultures, but are there any countries that where, or cultures that are particularly good at talking about it? And what sort of lessons can we learn from them?
So we've got places like Mexico where they have the Day of the Dead, and it's a celebration of your ancestors and it's a celebration of your life over a period of time. And Indonesia is another example where sort of the dead are revered. But it's conversations. It's almost like the circle of life, and they do tend to deal with it much better than we do over here. It's almost like I don't know whether it's something I experienced death of a parent at a very young age. So it's always been something that I've felt. Probably, I think people think I'm quite morbid sometimes, but it's actually just very real, and it's always something that can happen. So, I just think we don't talk about disability. Absolutely, we're obsessed with youth. I couldn't agree more, Linda. And it's really challenging. And if there's answers on a postcard, please, if anybody can think of ways that we can get this out, about having those conversations. I joke to my children, keep it on the Christmas theme here, is I'd love to die around Christmas time so that when my coffin is there, I can have Fairy Tale of New York played and my coffin will be wrapped in Christmas lights.
Oh,
I know, right?
how nice.
I know. If it happens in the summer, they're going to have to put me in the freezer or something because that's kind of my wishes now.
I just think there's a massive disconnect between like people at different levels and you know how they think about it. And there's obviously, I think there's a wealth divide thing on this as well, right? Massive wealth divide thing. I put out my poll this morning was about retirement, right? Which again kind of fits into this as well, because I was saying, because I'm of a certain age now, pretty much every single day when I open up LinkedIn, it will be a couple of seconds before I'm hit with, have you made plans for your retirement? What are you doing? Are you investing your money and whatever? And, I just think it's not what it used to be, right? Pensions are not what they used to be. Even if you've got a pension, that doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to be able to retire in the, like our parents did before, whatever. Life is busier, the way of work is completely different from it used to be in generations past, etc. So all of these things, these are massive, massive things that people, I think, at work carry with them every single day. And yet we don't talk about it. And yet we're seeing a rise in anxiety and mental health issues and burnout and everything else. Do people not stop to think that part of it is that we are carrying the weight of all of this stuff, not talking about it, not bringing it out in the open? And we need to, because if we don't start talking about it at work, and you can be a idiot at work as a leader and think it doesn't matter. Work is about work. That's about life. That is so old-fashioned. Get off your plate, right? We need to actually bring this into work. If you really, really want to help productivity and engagement and purpose and stuff like that at work and change culture properly at work, you have to be in it for everything, not just the bits that you feel comfortable with dealing with. You've got to be in it for everything. You've got to start to understand your people in terms of what actually, stops them getting out of bed in the morning, or gets them out of bed in the morning, or makes them worried about where everything's going, or why they're not putting 100% effort into this, or is there a reason for all of this? And without open, transparent conversations about all of these things, you are not going to know, and you're just going to end up making assumptions. And I reckon there's so many, top tier management that are going, well, I've got the money, I'm going to have a pension, I've got an exit plan, I've got all of this or whatever. There's probably loads of people working for them that haven't got a Scooby-Doo's how they are going to deal with all of this when the hits the fan. And that's it.
Interestingly, I spoke to a 15-year-old friend of my daughter's the other day. We were talking about what they wanted to do, whether they wanted to go to sixth form or college, or what were their plans. And they were going to go and do something for a couple of years and work for the council because they had a good pension. And I thought to myself, I don't even know if I knew at that age what a pension was. And children, and I think a lot of it's to do with the access we have to information now, was considering, I mean, they're probably going to be working at their age, probably working until they're 75 or they drop, but was considering what their pension options would be. That's wild to me.
Yeah.
Absolutely wild. But you're right, people are carrying this around with them. And it's very hard to be in the present and also carrying the burden of what will happen, but with that awkward silence around what we're going to do about it. So it's bridging that gap, I think. We've got a very interesting guest on the podcast. Louisa comes to talk about midlife career changes, which again is a really interesting subject because you get to your 40s and a lot of people change their careers at that point, and part of it is because you realise you're actually, and this is depressing for anyone listening, you're only halfway through your working life. Although you may feel like you've been in it for an eternity, you've still got that eternity to go as well. So, and I think there's more to be made about sort of a work-life balance, and it's, do I want to be doing this for the next 25 years of my life? And quite often the answer is no.
It's interesting because I mean, I'm sort of bringing in or crowbarring ergonomics in here, Graham, but I know we always try and bring it back to that. But it's interesting what Vicky and yourself are saying there, because it sounds like we need to start engaging with organisations to talk about it with their staff. But we know how difficult it is with some organisations to even talk about the health and well-being of their staff in the here and now. So it sounds absolutely the right thing to do, but do you know what I mean, Graham? Some organisations don't even look at the here and now. So are they going to look at it and go, "We're not talking about that. We're only interested in this, this, and this." So I think it's something that absolutely has to be done. But it sounds like with a lot of companies, it could be a real challenge. Although obviously some will embrace it, of course.
And this is why it's going to become moved up and up and up on the agenda, I think, for businesses that really want to succeed, is that whole culture change piece, that whole mindset piece, right? Because I think we've had so many years of doing it badly, to be honest, in business. And the thing that has come out of the pandemic, the thing that has changed is that people stopped on the planet and went, my God, what's it all about? That's the thing that has completely changed. And because of that, and yes, to some extent, we've all, got back on the hamster wheel. But I think there's still that element where it's made that seismic shift. And now businesses have to deal with working in a different way. They have to deal with that people are not going to necessarily accept it in the same way, that actually we are going to start thinking about this stuff.
I think interestingly, there was some studies done around the way different generations view the workplace. So you've got your baby boomers, job for life, you go in at entry level when you're 16, 17, and you stay with a company, and there's company loyalty. Then you have the sort of the Gen Xers, and they come in and they progress their career within a similar type of work, although they may move companies over a longer period of time. Then you've got the millennials, who work-life balance is a real big shift for them. And then you've got the next generation coming up. And I think this is really interesting, because all the studies have shown is they're turning down management positions because actually it's not worth the hassle. They would rather have their time. And I think that's a lot to do with, as you rightly pointed out, Graham, COVID. Actually, what is life about? Why are we all here? And am I just working to, it's live to work or work to live? And I think the younger generation they're turning around to say, it's not worth it. So I think from that, and it may take quite a while to get there, is companies will have to change their working practices in order to retain talent within them, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing.
No.
I think we've moved away from work-life balance. I think work-life balance is a very old-fashioned idea, right? I think that is like 10 years ago now. I think a lot of young people now coming through are, and I've got enough of them, my own, to have my own case study. But I think from what I see of my own children's development of, career path and whatever, we are now talking about work life integrated. It's about what gives me joy, what doesn't give me joy, what do I like doing, what don't I like doing. It's as simple as that. And now they are, as you say, they are choosing to say, I want to do stuff that makes me happy, and I want to do it I want to do it when when it suits me, and I want to do it for the amount of time that suits me. And I'm going to look around until I find that. I know my eldest, was offered certain job roles and promotions and whatever, and he went, no, I'm going to move over here where I can do 4 days a week rather than 5. And actually, I won't progress. He's actually progressed out of that now, but I'm not going to progress out of that until I'm offered the kind of work that I really want to do, doing the kind of stuff that I want to do, and that still have some flexibility in that, right? And they will hold on for that. They will not just jump in. We were like desperate back in the day, right? Generation X. Sounds impressive, doesn't it? Sounds like we were all, some kind of Power Ranger, but we weren't. We were pretty rubbish when it came to work. We were like, yeah, give me a job, give me some money.
And we were just led by the cash, weren't we?
Led by the cash.
Someone was offering it. We were there.
And ultimately, how many people you remember how many conversations did you have at that sort of time where people went, yeah, well, job's awful, hate it really, don't like it much, not really interested in what I'm doing, but don't worry, I have, I'm going out for the weekend, I live for me Friday nights down the pub. But I mean, that's that whole generation did that.
And that was fine. That was fine there, because that was what sometimes we sort of look back at things and you sort of judge old events by new rules and new ways, and that was just the way it was. It was good and it was fine. That's how people were. They weren't doing anything different. That was just the thing. But the thing now is a different thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a different thing. And I think the biggest problem right now for business leaders is that, which is that a lot of businesses, in terms of structure and how they work and even their processes and whatever, still built around that. They're still built around 20 years ago. They're not built for now. And they are struggling with a generation coming in of, I don't want to work like that. What do you mean? No, look, I'm good at what I do. Look, I'll just do it. But if I could do it like that, look, it's my work could be flexible. Surely I could do it here, there, and then. I'm quite happy to work at 11 o'clock at night, but I don't want to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning. All right, there's a really different sort of approach to work, and I think businesses are struggling to keep up with that. But I think let's go back to the conversation about care and health, and you Vicky, you must have figures for the amount of people out there that are caring for other people in the UK, and it's frightening, right?
It absolutely is. 2 out of 3 of us will become carers, and the other 1 will require care. That's everybody.
Mad.
Another mind blowing, if we're relating this to business, 600 people per day in the UK are leaving the workforce because they're struggling to juggle their caring responsibilities with employment. And in a Carers UK survey, I think it was last year, actually a further 75% of people who are caring and working are considering leaving their post because there isn't enough hours in the day. Family structures look very different. Economically, you need to be in a household where 2 people are bringing in income, whereas traditionally, perhaps the woman in the family would have cared for elderly relatives and so on. Society doesn't look like that anymore.
No.
Financially, people can't cope, but then the care provision ordinarily would have fallen on to the woman in the family. They're now having to work and try to accommodate that as well, and quite often whilst having children. So there has to be a seismic shift in the way that we're doing things, and I think the understanding for workplaces around the impact that caring for somebody has on their day-to-day life is essential to start that shift in the right direction. 600 people a day.
Yeah,
that's eye-watering for businesses.
So Stephen, I think if
I'm just like still running the. When you try to just do the number, and I'm thinking, is that if you just do business Monday to Friday, that's 150,000 per year. If I've done that right, 3,000 a week. Roughly almost 160,000 people a year.
It's mad. It's absolutely mad. And if you want to bring that connection back to ergonomics and general well-being, etc., or physical well-being within the workplace, where businesses are going wrong again is that we're not actually dealing with any of this in general by having conversations. We're not. What we're doing is we're making decisions based on, dare I say the word again, tick boxes. And that's the problem, right? We're not taking this back to a people level, right? Because actually, what every single, and this is going to blow some leaders' minds. Sorry to blow your mind on a Friday, but what there is not a solution that you can put into place which is going to deal with everybody in your organization blanket. It's terrible. And I've said this before, see it every single week on LinkedIn, etc. Let's put a poll out. Who thinks we should have a 4-day working week? How long's a piece of string? Who thinks that we should have hybrid working that looks like this? We should all have Wednesday off. What are you talking about? You cannot take a template, stick it on every single business that's out there, and that will work. You are going to have to do the hard work on this. You are really going to have to do the hard work. And that's the problem. I think businesses don't realize that they do need to do this. They do need to get to know their people really well and have those two-way conversations all the time. That's the only way we're going to get through this. It's the only way you're going to progress forward. And we've got to expand the depth of those conversations to include things like, how are you dealing with your parents? What does childcare look like for you? Have you thought about, when you stop working here, how are you going to look after yourself? Because if that's keeping you awake at night and it's stopping you doing my reports nicely, I mean, it's, I need to be talking to you about it.
There's a word, Graham, we hear sort of bandied around our sector quite a bit, which is presenteeism.
Yeah.
And in the context that we talk about it is how many people are going physically. So I talked to someone the other day and they were unsure on the difference. And I was saying the difference between absenteeism and presenteeism. What? You look shocked that someone didn't know.
No, this is what presenteeism looks like.
Yeah. But that's what it is. We talk about presenteeism in our sector as to how many people are going into work, but because of little issues, aren't able to perform their job. It'd be really fascinating to know from a care perspective what presenteeism looks like in terms of how many people are going into work, but because of what they're having to do because of the care they're doing outside of their work is impacting their actual role. So it's suddenly you start thinking about it and think, well, how many? Yeah, okay, they're physically present at work, but there's other things on their mind. They're tired from doing this. So how many people are being impacted at work from a presenteeism perspective from the fact they are a carer as well?
I think it's really interesting. And I think when you said, Graham, before about having conversations with people and they'll have to do the hard work, I think what you'll find when you actually start talking to people is people have the answers themselves. You just need to ask them and be open to what their answer is. And that improves. So I worked from home long before COVID because I was a single parent. I live in North Wales. The job market isn't great up here, very transient population. So I was looking, and my friends used to say to me, why on earth are you trying to work from home? What's that all about? I said, because I can work anywhere in the UK from home. And I really love the outcomes-based model. It's not the arbitrary numbers of hours that I do in a day. My outputs are what counts. And if that takes me to, I love working in the middle of the night. I'll happily stay at report writing. That's probably the ADHD till 2 a.m. Love it. writing a report at 7 a.m.? Not going to happen.
No.
Will I get the job done in the way that I manage my time best? And I appreciate that some of us are in a very privileged position that our job dictates that we're able to do that. And perhaps there are elements that it's slightly more difficult from a business perspective to have people working different hours. But I think what you'll find is having those conversations, people will tell you this would work for me. And then that's the conversation starter, is how you make that work with both business needs and personal needs as well.
Yeah. There's a massive element there, which is quite interesting, which is, I think businesses have begun to realize they need to understand the differences between people a little bit more, and there's more openness to talking about neurodiversity as opposed to people being neurotypical. However, still a lot of our structures are built around neurotypical design, and that's still a massive problem. It's no point, there is absolutely no point in talking about neurodiversity and awareness of neurodiversity if you don't actually change anything.
I think it's all very closely related as well. So if we look at the arbitrary 9 to 5, that doesn't just affect people who are neurodiverse. That is a system built on when somebody else was at home doing your cooking and your cleaning and looking after the children. That's what that was built on. And yet somehow we've carried that through. Life has changed completely in the last few decades. So even from a neurotypical point of view, 9 to 5 is still a really arbitrary number of hours. And we all know, and you know who you are if you're listening, is we all know the paper shuffler in the office who will look busy for 8 hours a day. I'm looking at you right now. 8 hours a day, and they're rushing around and achieving nothing. And you also know the person who will head down, get 6 hours worth of work done in 2 hours, and yet still somehow the arbitrary 9 to 5 thing is still a measure of it's not a measure of productivity, it's outputs rather than outcomes. And I think it's a really difficult concept for people to grasp, particularly, and I'm going to say this, I'm probably going to shut down, older generations who've worked in that structure for a long time. It's really difficult to make that shift.
We've had so many of those conversations about, especially about sort of real estate and what, the expectations of business owners who own buildings, etc., or in leases that they can't get out of, and the impact all of that had over the sort of COVID period, etc. But do you think our companies have they learned anything? Are they coming to grips with that kind of now, Stephen, when you're out and about seeing people?
I think so. I think people are, but I was interested in what you were saying there, because it's trying to take that sort of balanced view on it all, because whilst you almost think of the people who own the buildings as the sort of the landlords and the ones with all the money and the fat cats and all that sort of stuff. But the reality is we all have some sort of vested interest in that sector, whether it's things like pension pots and all those sort of things. So it's trying to sort of see, I guess, a balanced view, isn't it, really, to understand that, yes, we need to make sure we look after the individual, but equally there has to be a degree of sort of looking after what those organizations want. I think certainly it's a lot better. I think people are getting their heads around it, and I think, but on the flip side, you are seeing a shift to getting a lot more people back in the office, almost arbitrary as well. So I think there's so many moving pieces. I think, like anything, almost like what we're saying with when we started off about that, there's good examples and bad examples. I don't think it's clear exactly what's happening. I think some companies who get it and know what they want to do are being really positive and making those changes. Other ones are just burying their head in the sand and just hoping the problem will go away.
I've got a really interesting viewpoint on the whole real estate thing. I just wonder, I think that we haven't developed enough flexibility around it. Right. And I think where you do see flexibility going on, it works really, really well. Right. I just think I think it's so old fashioned. If you look at what's happened in terms of retail on the high streets as well, because of the internet, etc., the people that are surviving, I mean, we've seen, we've gone through that massive period, and we're still seeing it, of absolute giants of retail just disappearing from the high street, and at one point people would have thought, oh, they're going to be there forever. That's going to be
there. There's no way they'll fall into trouble. It's impossible.
There's no way that we won't see Debenhams anymore, or Woolworths, or whatever.
But
they all disappear, right? And that's inevitable. And I think what you're seeing now with the people that are surviving and being there, whatever, they're getting a lot more savvy about what kind of premises they are taking. We're seeing a lot more stores in stores and whatever, which is people sharing space, etc. We're seeing, we're seeing sort of like, as I say, multifunctional type of spaces where I can go in, I can browse, and there's someone over there that's selling me books, and then someone over there that's selling me clothes, and there's someone over there that's making me coffee, and I feel like I can spend more time in this space because it's not just one thing, and that kind of makes sense. I can have less people running it because I might only have to have a few people actually serving, but the infrastructure bit is, spread in terms of costs between different people, whatever. That's clever. That's being smart about this and is adding flexibility to it. And I think businesses need to do the same. There's pretty much every business that's out there. There's at times there's a need for them, even if they're kind of all working from home or whatever. There's a time when we actually need to get together. There's a time when we actually physically need to go and see people, have meetings face to face with people, or network with people, or do activities with people together, or maybe, hold an event or whatever. Use your space like that. Make your space available to other businesses that may only need it from time to time. Don't hog it all to yourself and go, oh, we've got a massive, great building here. We're just going to have a whole floor there with 2 desks on them. It stays empty all the time. We'd rather do that than actually have someone using it. Stupid. Be more flexible about it. And actually, we could all benefit a little bit more. I think more flexibility, as we've developed a way in which we want to do business more flexible, we've got to think about our spaces doing that as well. That's my 2 pennies worth on it. If you know anything about this sort of stuff out there in real estate, do let us know. I'd love to have the conversation with you.
So when will the app be live then, Vicky? When will we see this?
We are we're just in the testing phase now. It's going to go out to people in families over the next couple of months, so we should have an update in the new year. But we'll also be releasing the podcast in January. So follow OurLives on LinkedIn. I'm going to get my plug in there, guys, while I'm online, for more updates, and come along for the ride with us. Come along for the journey, because this is sort of like developing in public is quite the thing to do. Very exciting. But what we are open to do is getting everybody's feedback, because taking it right back to earlier on in the conversation, there's no one size fits all, and the more views we can get, the more input we can get from people, it just makes for a better product in the end.
Well, listen, Vicky, thank you so much for coming on and joining us in the conversation today. Just before we go today, talking about views, you mentioned it, I didn't. So I'm gonna use that as a lovely segue into this, which is this time of year, folks. You have Spotify Wrapped, which is where we get the results in of how podcasts do, and here we are. So, Wow Ergonomics, our 2024 gains. We have gained 57% listeners. We are up 82% in terms of streams, and we are up 28% in terms of followers. That's you. You've done that, folks. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This year. There we go. 92% of our new listeners, 2% of our listeners have come in this year. Wow. Thank you so much for all of that you're doing out there. Just carry on. You can go to wowergonomics.com and join the party. There we go. Happy Christmas to you, Vicky. Happy Birthmas. I love that.
Birthmas.
Daughter. That's fantastic. Do please connect with Vicky on LinkedIn and follow the progress over the next few months, etc.
Thanks for having me. Have a great Birthmas and Christmas, whatever it is to you.
And to you. I must ask this question before we go. How often do the needles? Oh, because it's an artificial tree. But how often do the needles pop the balloons? I've just been wanting to ask you that for the whole show.
I'm going to say not as often as the dog does.
Ah, okay.
Great answer. Great answer. Folks, we'll be back same time, same place next week with more of the same. See you then. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.